The Red Eye Radio podcast is a service of Freightliner and Detroit.
Now it's Red Eye Radio with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And thank you so much. We are live with you Monday night. Tuesday morning. Going to give you a programming note. There's going to be a best of show Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I will be away. And then Gary and Eric, they're going to return live for Wednesday night, Thursday morning show. And for those of you that are keeping track, I will be back live doing my normal show, Monday through Friday, 2 to 5 in the afternoon at News Talk 820 WBAP. Or just check us out at WBAP.com. All right. I've got a lot to get to tonight. And, of course, for those of you that don't know, that haven't listened when I fill in, and it's always a pleasure to fill in when Gary and Eric are away. I'm a caller-driven show. I don't do a lot of guests. Most politicians don't like to come on the show because they don't like to be asked the hard questions. If I wanted to throw Larry King softballs, I'd probably be doing something else. There are a few that will come on and take the heat. And if you're in politics, it should go with the territory. But as I was thinking about the show, this is the last night I'll be with you, and then I go back to BAP here in town, Dallas, Texas. I was thinking, everybody, it's a New Year's type show. Everybody's personally, I don't make New Year's resolutions. Everybody else does. I think it's a setup for failure to get that far ahead. But I do believe in looking back at the previous year and saying, okay, if I had it to do over again, I would have done this or I would have done that. I would have supported Trump. Okay, I'm just kidding. But at the end of the day, don't you think you learn just as much, if not more, by looking back at the previous year and how things turned out? This worked really good. This didn't work at all. I don't know that you can move ahead without contemplating what the previous year was all about. So I'm going to open up the phone lines first thing. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And if you could, wave that that magic wand and change anything about your life, about your business, about your country, about your politics, if you could change anything about 2019, what would it be? I'll tell you why I was put in mind of this. I started reading all the ridiculous predictions for 2019, all of which just were an abysmal failure. Trump is going to resign, citing health reasons. Joe Biden's not going to run for president. The Chi-Coms are going to take over the United States. I mean, it was... I know there are always the sky is falling gloom and doomers. They're always there, always going to be. And I don't put much stock into that. If it's economics I'm worried about, I go to some of the people that I've known over the years. Moore, for instance, Kudlow, that I know, the architect of Trump's economic plan. I go to people like that, people that have a decent resume. But looking back at 2019, what would I have done different? What would I have done differently as far as business is concerned, perhaps? As far as the business I'm in, talk radio, opportunities maybe I should have taken that I didn't for whatever reason, politics, the people that I discounted that maybe I should have taken a harder look at. Trump was huge last year. And there's no getting around that. I mean, he has polarized the entire nation. And I've heard a lot of people talking about, well, because of this administration, this entire country is divided and hate is coming in every sense, in every form. And I just differ with that. This guy didn't start that. This identity politics was started by the left. If you're looking for the genesis, the flashpoint of hate, you have to go back to the previous president, Barack Obama. And while he wouldn't lead the parade, he certainly pointed to which direction it might be found. Now, the left is where all the hate is coming from. You know, whether it's a sham impeachment or spending $50-60 million of taxpayer money chasing Russian ghosts under the bed, or Stormy on a stripper's pole in the Lincoln bedroom, whatever it happens to be, that's where the hate's coming from. Because the Democrats have learned something, and I figured this out in 2019. They have learned to exploit something that the Republicans refuse to do. They exploit the mentality of the American people, which they know for the most part don't read the news, don't watch the news. They may take their talking points from CNN or MSNBC, but as far as sitting down and critically thinking about an issue, they just simply don't do it. So, who was it that said, never let a good crisis go to waste? In the same vein, in the same mindset, never let an empty-headed Democrat go to waste. We can maneuver them, manipulate them in any direction we want to go. So what did I learn in 2019, politically speaking? I learned that a lot of Americans, voting Americans, either don't care, forgive me, this gives me no pleasure to say, they either don't care or they're too stupid to be involved. You know, as long as they're given directions and talking points, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, please, sir, may I have more? That's all they want. That's not the type of country I want to live in. If I wanted to live in a country like that, I would have sold all my worldly possessions and moved to Venezuela and stand in line for 2 days for a roll of toilet paper. And it was so sad. That was one of the most prosperous countries on planet Earth. And now it's a third world crap hole. I mean, nobody wants to go there. And, of course, Democrats will tell you in an effort to get your support, well, the only reason socialism doesn't work is because we haven't administered it. Oh, okay. All right. They always point to Scandinavia. That's like comparing apples to crescent wrenches. Doesn't work. So at the end of the day, if you think about it, and not everybody can do this, I understand that, but if you think about it, as we prepare, what are we, 24 hours away? Less than 48 hours away from a new year, the year 2020. As you look back on 2019, and if you look back honestly, and I mean honestly, and sometimes that's not easy to do, but if you look back honestly, what would you have changed? What would you, if you could have, what would you have changed personally, politically, as far as your country is concerned? And it is your country. I don't care what any Democrat tells you, or Republican. It is your country. Founding fathers got that part right, at least. So I'm going to take your calls, 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-907-3339. We got some other stuff we need to get into, obviously. But I'm really interested. Generally speaking, when I come over here for Eric and Gary, we have a really good time because listeners are plugged in, they're informed, they at least know something about the issues, which is important. You know, I'm still an advocate of maybe, a one-page sheet or pamphlet of some sort that you must walk in to the registrar of voters, you check it off, and it determines whether you know what day it is. If you don't, you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote. Well, Rick, stupid people should be allowed to vote too. No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't. I truly believe unless you've been responsible for another human being other than yourself for one full calendar year, And in addition to that, work someplace where you got a check stub, and the first check stub you got, whoa, what is all this? Where'd all that money go? Who's this FICA person? Why is that money coming out? Until you've been responsible for another human being other than yourself for one full calendar year and worked and received a check so you can peruse that check stub every 2 weeks for a year, I don't think you should be allowed to vote. You know, certainly if you're on government assistance, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Rick, that's not the American way. Well, forgive me. What is the American way? All right, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-907-3339. If you could change anything in 2019, if it was possible, what would it be? I'm Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. I'm Rick Roberts, in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Glad you're along. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-907-3339. I want to get right to your calls. My question, really the question came from, I was doing some reading earlier about how pitiful all these predictions for 2019 were. Politically, economically, socially, just about any way you can think. I mean, they didn't just get it wrong. They got it off the charts wrong. And I thought, you know, everybody's making New Year's resolutions. I get that. I personally don't. But, you know, sometimes looking back can give you more information than anything else. If you could change anything in 2019, whether it's personal or business or economics or as far as the country goes or politically, what would it be? All right, let's get to your calls. Let's go to Louisville, Kentucky, and talk with Richard. Richard, thank you for your patience. How you doing?
Yeah, hi, Rick. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Rick, I think America is healthy when we are searching for the truth and staying close to the truth as possible. And I think we've made progress this year, and that's the good thing. But it took us too long to get a new Attorney General. I think William Barr has done an excellent job. But until we got William Barr, the only person really significantly speaking out for the truth was our President Donald Trump, who's done an excellent job, but working by himself, he was far outnumbered. But now that we have an excellent Attorney General too, you know, after we got William Barr, Mueller left town, and he saw that there was a new sheriff in town, I think, and he realized that he was going nowhere with that sham investigation that he was running, and that he was going to be found out if he didn't leave and cut that investigation off where he did. But we could have, if we had started earlier, we could have short-circuited this whole impeachment scandal that we've got going on still right now. I believe the truth could have been, we could have found out the truth earlier, but now we've let it go so long. We're having to push back on an existing fraud that's going on, this impeachment scam.
No, I got you. So basically what you're saying is, let's not drag it out. The search for the truth needs to be sooner rather than later, and don't let these, whether it's a Russian collusion sham or an impeachment scam or whatever it happens to be, don't let it be the headline of the day in the continuous news cycle. Search for the truth, get it over with, and move on. That's essentially what you're saying, right?
And we do have more spokesmen coming on now, like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and a number of other, Doug Collins and Jim Jordan. They've been doing an excellent job getting the truth out too. But it's in fact, it
just took too long. That's what you're saying, and that makes perfect sense. Richard, looking back to 2019, says if he could change anything, we wouldn't draw this stuff out. We'd search for the truth, get it, put it in the face of the opposition party, and then move on. Richard, very good call, and again, Happy New Year. Let's go to Arkansas, talk with Monty. Monty, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well, thank you, Rick. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, and you.
I just want to say that in about 24 hours, our minimum wage here in Arkansas goes up to $10 an hour. And I like what you were saying earlier about people need to be accountable for their actions. They need to be able to know what they're doing. And I don't believe these legislators that change the minimum wage really understand what they're doing.
Well, they're buying votes.
Yeah, but, I'm wondering who's paying them for that. It's just ridiculous. They didn't take these poor older folks that are on fixed incomes, and now everything, including their gasoline and their groceries, are going to cost more.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just, how can they not see this, what they're doing to the American public?
They do.
On a national, then what?
They do see what they're doing.
Frustrating.
No, I'm right there with you. They do see it, but they're using it as a way to garner a vote, especially on the left. Democrats' platform has been, is now, and will always be, vote for me and I'll give you stuff. That sounds oversimplified, but think about it. Think about $15 an hour. Think about that. $15 an hour to collect shopping carts at Walmart. $15 an hour to bag groceries. Bagging groceries, picking up shopping carts, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. But those were never intended to be head of household positions. Those were to be entry-level jobs. Those were never intended to be, okay, well, I've got a new job, bagging groceries, picking up shopping carts. I can get that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for my family of 4 I've always wanted. That's what they make you think, but that's not what it is. All they're trying to do is get more votes. Monty, very, very good call. Please don't be a stranger. Ron in Delaware. Ron, let me see if I can get Ron in here. Ron, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
What's going on?
Well, everybody's talking about how that OCC or whatever that gal's name is, like a new breed of Democrat.
Well, I want you to hang on a second, Ron, because I can tell we're not going to be able to get this in time. Bottom line is, I want to hear what you have to say. Now your national forecast for Travel Centers of America.
The snow flurries have been flying for the northern tier states of portions of eastern North Dakota and South Dakota, but primarily Wisconsin, Minnesota, portions of eastern Iowa, northern Indiana, and Illinois, and into Michigan. Now, that's where the bulk of the snow flurries will be today. Chicago set to pick up anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches, more like 5+ for Minneapolis. Then as we move to the north and east, there's an area of rain. Then out ahead of that frontal boundary, freezing rain for places like upstate New York and into the northeast. Now, that'll continue throughout the day today as those cold temperatures accompany this frontal boundary. More snow for the Pacific Northwest begins as rain today on the coast, and then as it crosses the Rockies, we'll see snow for Idaho and Montana. Most of the rest of the nation under clear skies and unseasonably warm temperatures. Your national forecast from Red Eye Radio, I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
And thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be over when the guys are out. If I'm available, I happen to be this week taking some time through the holidays off my normal slot, 2 to 5 in the afternoon Central Time at WBAP. So very happy to be in for Gary and Eric. All right, I was talking with Ron. The question is, if you could, I know everybody's doing resolutions. That's not really what I'm talking about. Looking back into 2019, if you could change anything from a personal perspective, a business perspective, political, social, whatever it happened to be, if you could change anything, what would that be? 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And Ron, I appreciate your patience. I didn't want to cut you off in mid-sentence. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing just fine. Well, what I wish they would do was they would take back over the school system, because they're rebreeding everybody. Because that, whatever that gal is, that they say the new type of Democrat, she's not a new type of Democrat.
Okay, wait. Hold on. Who is it you want to take over the school system? I'm lost here.
Somebody besides the Democrats.
Oh, you want to get the federal government out of the public school system?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
That OCC or whatever her name is.
Oh, you're talking about Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, that is the type of Democrat I grew up under in Louisiana.
I'm not sure you did or not. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a socialist. She's not a Democrat, historically speaking, the way you and I perhaps would describe a Democrat. Now, if you grew up under a socialist dictate in Louisiana, then I stand corrected. Cortez, Tlaib, Omar, Presley, none of these people represent or are manifestations of historical Democrats. They are, by their own admission, socialist Democrats. Well, what's that? You can't be a little socialist. That's like being a little bit pregnant. Oh, no, I'm not really pregnant. I'm kind of, sort of pregnant. No, if you're pregnant, you're pregnant. If you're a socialist, you're a socialist. You can't dip your toe in the water and say, okay, that's all the socialism. I mean, socialism, and I've said this 1,000 times, socialism is the rest stop on the highway to communism. That's what it is. Ask the people in Venezuela. Ask the people anywhere on planet Earth where they've tried socialism. It's never, ever, ever worked. And, of course, the Democrat Party in the U.S. will tell you, well, no, of course it didn't work. We weren't running it. That arrogance doesn't impress me, and I don't buy into it. But, yes, let's get back to the first thing you said, Ron, getting the government out of public education. Absolutely 100% without condition or qualification, that should happen. How many kids that graduate know anything about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, anything? You can't miss something you never knew you had, and most young people have no clue what the Constitution is. The Bill of Rights, they have no idea. That's for them. The Bill of Rights is for you and me and everyone else. No. Anything the government gets involved with immediately, in less than a blink of an eye, becomes ridiculously more expensive and unbelievably less efficient. So, no, I don't think they should have a hand in educating the nation's youth, because they don't want critical thinkers. They want people to be subservient. That's not my idea of a good education. Ron, thank you for hanging on. I appreciate it. Let's go to New Hampshire, talk with Pete. Pete, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Pete?
Very good, Rick, and have a Happy New Year.
And you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. the thing that your previous caller, I believe it was Ron, was talking about AOC and so forth, and it's amazing. She was at a rally with Bernie Sanders. I think it was over the weekend, and she's jumping up and down and yelling. Somebody in the crowd yelled, the right, that we're all fascists and so forth. It's like the pot calling the kettle black, because they're the fascists. But when it comes to finger pointing, I think the biggest problem I can see in 2019 was the fact that the mainstream media did nothing but generate stories based on nothing but twisted, false information. This whole Russia probe with Rachel Maddow, it went on and on and on for how many years, Rick? Two plus years, and where do we end up? We find out in the end there was nothing but a bunch of major fabrications made up so that they could try to boost their ratings, and in fact they're sinking in the tank, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Sean Hannity had many times. I know he sounds like a mockingbird after a while. He repeats himself night after night, and I've got that. But Sean Hannity wasn't too far off when he said journalism in this country is dead.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, Sean's a very good friend. We've worked together, and I've known Sean for 20 years. But the phraseology, journalism is dead. The first time I heard that, I was sitting in a studio, and this was before he passed, obviously. And it's got to be, 20 years ago, maybe longer than that. Walter Cronkite was sitting in studio with me, and I didn't agree with him on anything politically. And he was the first one to ever say to me, point blank, eye to eye, journalism is dead. There is no journalism. It's all an entertainment-based product, and it'll never be the same.
And the other thing, Rick, is that we the people, they work for us. We don't work for them.
Well, why? Okay, that's a mantra. I've said that now I've been in this business 26 years, radio and television. I've been saying that since day one. We're the dog, not the tail. They work for us. They work at our pleasure. So why do we put up with this? It's like we all buy a ticket and go sit in the bleachers, and they get out there on the field to play and do whatever they want, and we're forced to sit and watch. The American people shouldn't stand for that. Why do we?
Do you not agree also that we need to downsize our government? We have agencies in a layered system, a tiered system, where you have the same people in the same agencies and back and forth, shuffling the same paper, passing the same paper back and forth. The United States government is the biggest employer in the United States. Does anyone realize that?
Oh, yeah. You're right. So looking back in 2019, if you could wave that proverbial magic wand, what would you change? One single thing.
The downsizing of the federal government.
Amen. I'll agree with that 100%. Good call. I appreciate it. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Let's go to Troy. Troy, where are you calling from?
Keller,
Texas. Good to have you.
Rick, my sister turned me on to you. I've been listening to you for almost a year after Rush, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think the gentleman, Richard, that was talking to you earlier, maybe 3 calls ahead, he was relating to Attorney General Barr.
Yes.
I think what he was trying to say is getting rid of Sessions. I mean, that might have been what he was trying to relate to, but Jeff Sessions, that he supported Trump early, and he knew he was going to win. That's why he did what he did, but then immediately recused himself. The Clinton cartel must have got to him, if you know what I mean.
No, I do know what you mean. And I think that's probably what he meant. It took too long to get it done. And I agree with that. Probably did. But as I look back, the last caller said if he could look back at 2019, whether it's our personal lives or business lives or political or social or whatever, if he could change anything, it would be to downsize government. But see, as long as a Democrat is in power or in majority, as they are in the House, government never decreases in size and scope, and I'll tell you why. Government at any level, and this is true whether it's the United States or Zimbabwe or any place else, a government can only increase in size and scope by the number of people that are dependent upon it. That is to say, if you've got a bunch of self-sustaining, critically thinking, they can take care of themselves type people that aren't dependent on government, then government can't grow, can't increase in size and scope. But if you get to a point where you've got one of the two primary political parties that is urging people to be dependent on government, then what happens? The more people that are dependent on government, the larger government becomes. I think the last time I checked, a full 1/3, probably over that now, a full 1/3 of all Americans are on some type of government assistance. Well, no wonder we've got a government that's burgeoning coast to coast. You've got to get those people away and out from underneath government rule. But Democrats, that's their foundation. Vote for me, depend on me, I'll be your daddy, I'll take care of you, free college, free health care, whatever you want, we'll work it out, we'll get it some way or the other. Does everybody understand that? Does everybody understand? Well, all right. We'll get to your calls in just a second. Do I sound like I'm getting frustrated? All right, pull the hose in here. I need somebody spray me down. This is Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Eric and Gary. Glad you're along. Let's go to Ron in Alabama. Ron, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Ron?
Yes, sir. I'm doing fine. Thank you for taking my call. I hope you have a great new year.
And you too.
And I wanted to mention, you asked what would I change. It would be the school system. We have to get control of this teaching our children falsehoods. You know, that they're not being taught our history correctly, and the difference between capitalism and socialism, and even the math, the science is not even being taught truthfully. Teaching them global this and global warming and stuff, and it's pathetic the way we let them teach our children these lies.
No, I agree. From outcome-based education, that's going back a few years, to Common Core, to all the rest, is designed to do one thing: push the parents or the guardian out of the picture, so that the public school system has free rein to socialize and indoctrinate any way they see fit. Now, hang on. Before you start throwing rocks at my house, you hate teachers. I'm not talking about teachers. I'm talking about the curriculum. Teachers don't draw up the curriculum. I'm talking about the fact that public education has way too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And when the government's involved, you're screwed. Just that easy. And you can't airbrush out of history everything that makes you feel uncomfortable. That was exactly what they tried to do here in Dallas. Take down all the Confederate monuments, General Lee as horse traveler, take all those monuments down because it's uncomfortable. Well, it may be, but it's part of history. You can't airbrush out of history those things you don't like or that make you uncomfortable. History has already happened. It is a fact. And no, nobody's throwing parades. But, you know, if you're a black person in 2019, almost 2020, and you are paralyzed into inaction because of slavery, you need to get some counseling. You don't know any slaves. You don't know anybody that knew any slaves. You don't know anybody that knew anybody that knew any slaves. It's been a while. So let's move forward and get on down the road. And stop with this politically correct, free to be you and me hug a tree nonsense where everybody's got to be happy all the time. Guess what? Life's not happy all the time. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. You know, you have a good run 3 or 4 days out of the week, everything goes well, then you got to put out fires for the other 2. We don't teach people how to deal with negatives anymore. We don't teach history. We don't teach the founding fathers. We don't teach American exceptionalism, because God knows that's a dirty word. We don't teach kids how to live, deal with life. You know, participation, well, you showed up, that's all that counts. Well, I didn't play 1 minute. Out of here, that doesn't matter. Here, put that trophy on your shelf. I mean, we're idiots in that regard. You got to stop it. We got to be better than this. We've got to be much, much better than this. And by the way, since I'm on a rant, Democrats are going to have to live with the consequences of their pitiful, foolish impeachment farce. We're going to talk about that next. I'm Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now it's Red Eye Radio, with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And it's always great to be in for the guys when they're away. When I'm available, I always take the opportunity. I enjoy dealing with their audience on the issues of the day. Just a programming note. We are live, by the way, taking your calls live. There will be a best of show Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Best of Gary and Eric. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Then Gary and Eric will return live Wednesday night. And if you want to track me down, I'm back at WBAP Radio, WBAP.com, in Dallas, Texas, 2 to 5 Central in the afternoon. All right. We'll get to your calls in just a second. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. I don't know if you know who Conrad Black is. I try to read as much of his stuff as I can. He was the publisher of the London Telegraph in the UK a long time. He's authored several biographies on FDR and Nixon. I mean, he's part of the British House of Lords, Knight of the Holy See. He's the author of Donald J. Trump, President Like No Other. I could go on, but bottom line, he gave me this frame of reference about Democrats now having to live with the consequences of their pathetic, pitiful political theater, this impeachment farce. You know, the Never Trump campaign has basically skidded to a ludicrous and pitiful end with this year. They've dragged the media lackeys, their lapdogs, and the dwindling curiosity of the entire country through an absurd burlesque of solemn, sad, and happy, mad impeachment, right? But one thing is missing. Normally, for impeachment, there's a crime, and then you're impeached because of that crime. That's generally how it works. In this particular case, you've got an impeachment because we just don't like the guy looking for a crime. They have not alleged any actual illegal behavior. The Never Trump campaign, just absolutely blasted through the Star Chamber because of the what? The urgency. We got to do this right now. Got to do it right now. Why? Because they felt they needed to remove the president before the country reelects him. That's why. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and just for the record, if I can deviate for a second, I think she's done. I think she's through. I think she'll be sitting on the front porch out by her winery with a couple guys in white jackets giving blue pills and sipping a Chardonnay. I think she's finished. She's not going to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate she says, until Majority Leader Mitch McConnell promises to go to court and oblige administration witnesses to testify. Well, wait a second, sweet cheeks. You're in charge of the House, not the Senate. Trained Democratic SEALs in the House declined to take this on because of the urgency of the trial and the removal of the president. It's bad political theater. It's like a high school stage play. The revelation appears to have been noticed by the speaker just ahead of the arrival of Santa Claus, because Democrats have no case against the president. None. They're slipping in the polls, and that the last stand of the argument that a moral imperative makes Trump somehow clearly unfit to serve in the great office to which he was elected. All of that has crumbled. That's gone away. I get it. Trump grates on the nerves of a lot of people, right? Even people that support him. But that's not impeachable. Personally, I like that. I like the guy talking unrehearsed, no teleprompter, no 3x5 cards. I like it when he has to walk it back from time to time. That means he's telling me the truth. The country is going to punish a party that puts its own rabid partisan antagonism ahead of the national interest. And that's exactly what the Democrats have done. I truly believe that. The Democrats have no case for impeachment, so they can't go forward. They can't possibly imagine that there's any smoking gun anywhere that'll rock this thing one way or the other. And the country is entering a presidential election year in about, 48 hours? They can't get anyone except their, I can't even use that word on the radio, in the national political media to work with them. Yeah, CNN's going to work with them, MSNBC, Morning Ho, or whatever that is. They'll get them. That's a given. But the voters, the only people that are important are you and your neighbors and your coworkers. The voters are going to exercise your right and duty, by the way, to determine if they want to reelect Donald Trump. Just that simple. The Democrats started way late in the game. After years of huffing and puffing, and I'm going to blow your administration down, they failed to impress anyone, even Democrats. They came up empty. They produced and passed a pack of lies, hearsay, he said, she said, that they hoped would pass as an argument for impeachment. Now they're trying to assert constitutional rights that they don't possess, and this moral authority that they squandered years ago to deprive the Senate of the control over an impeachment trial. And I've said it before, impeachment is a process. It's not a vote in the House. Just because, we voted to impeach the president. Yes, you did, in the House. And per the Constitution, now the articles must be filed with the Senate where the trial happens. If that doesn't happen, there's no impeachment. Well, it's over. It's over. If I may be so bold, Madam Speaker, it's over. Go back to San Francisco, ask Santa's elves to help you clean up the public sanitation problem of the homeless people. Do whatever you need to do. The California Democratic Miracle is put on the city sidewalks, and it's up to you to clean it up. You're done in D.C. And I'm afraid you're done with a lot of Democrats, because you dragged the American people kicking and screaming. You lied through your teeth every single day on television to these people. Oh, yeah, he did this, he did that. Where's the proof? Well, I don't need any proof. I just know. I'm sorry. The Senate should refer to the Supreme Court the question of whether it's obliged to hold a trial when the House has failed to check any of the boxes the Constitution provides for. Right? I think they should. When was it? I think it was middle of December, maybe. The Wall Street Journal suggested that the Senate should proceed with its trial without receiving the articles from the House. I doubt if such a step would have any legal validity. Probably not. but it would be in order for McConnell to give Pelosi notice that the Senate will not conduct a trial unless the articles of impeachment are sent. I mean, what does is? I mean, come on. This is basic 5-year-old mentality stuff. The Democrats overplayed their hand. Pelosi never wanted this, by the way. Remember? She never wanted this, but the most extreme arm of the Democrat Party, the Cortez, Tlaib, Omar, all the rest, they forced her into it. She knew that she would paint herself in the corner politically. Well, we're starting impeachment, but we got nothing to impeach the guy on. Well, let's just go ahead. We'll find something. They didn't. It's showtime. Let the fool's carnival of unfeasible candidates elevate the designated Democrat piñata for the successful, if edgy, I'll give it that, president to hammer through the election campaign. What do we got? Quid pro Joe? Wait, we're going to work with this guy? At the end of the day, you can go back, you can look at the Obama Justice Department, you can go back and look at the Clinton campaign. They've had their full share of public attention for defamatory nonsense. They laid this rotten egg of impeachment. Now what are they going to do with it? They're going to have to live with it. And the American people will ultimately determine how it's going to play out for the Democrats. And that's the real question, isn't it? It's not about what he thought President Trump did or how I feel this could have worked out, or the if a woulda, coulda, shoulda, and $5 will buy you a cheap cup of Starbucks coffee. This is about facts. This is about legalities. This is about, okay, you started the impeachment process. What have you got? And, believe it or not, I don't believe voting Democrats, and I'm talking about coworkers, neighbors, people, family members, I don't think they're stupid. And I don't think they're going to take kindly to being dragged through the muck and the mire just because you don't have anything to run on going into the 2020 election. Hell, you should have thought about that 3 years ago. Because the Democrat Party, the Democrats, they're going to ask you for your vote so they can sit in the seat at the table of power. What have they done for you in 3 years? Nothing. We got Stormy Daniels. Strippers on a pole doesn't do it for me. We got Russian collusion. That wasn't. We got Kavanaugh, the rapist. That wasn't. And now we got this, the impeached president. That wasn't. I'll be honest with you, I don't think any Democrat in D.C. has earned anyone's vote. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Tips from J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated on winter weather driving. Beware the bridges. When driving through wintry weather, drivers must be aware of many potentially dangerous situations. One of those perhaps overlooked scenarios is driving on bridges. Precipitation could stop falling, and roads could look like they're drying up and returning to normal. But that doesn't mean that's happening on bridges at a similar rate. Navigate them carefully at all times. Because bridges don't have any way to trap heat below them, they will freeze faster and stay frozen longer than regular roadways. This could lead to unsuspecting drivers slipping and sliding on bridges, leading to serious accidents and pileups. Slow down when approaching a bridge, and always assume they're iced up when conditions are not ideal. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
This has been the Meritor Driver Report, brought to you by Pilot Flying J, Shell Rotella, and Meritor Aftermarket. Run with the bull.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. I'm Rick Roberts, in for Gary McNamara and Eric Carley. They return live Wednesday night, so don't forget that. All right. We started off with what would you change in 2019? oh, this is probably the biggest thing. It's showtime. Democrats in D.C., partner, it's showtime. You know, this pathetic political carnival of unfeasible candidates, as Conrad Black points out. I mean, look at that stage full of Democrat wannabes. Joe Biden's your front runner? Really? Joe Biden, Mr. Quid Pro Joe. Okay. I'm sorry. This isn't going to work. The Democrats are finally going to have to shut up about their moral outrage against Trump, prepare their explanations for the indictments that you know are going to come. From the special counsel investigation of this illicit spying conducted against Trump and his campaign and the transition team, the assorted legal and ethical lapses of the Obama Justice Department, the Clinton campaign, they had their full share of public attention. And all this defamatory nonsense. They laid this rotten egg of impeachment, and now they got to live with it. I got news for them. The American people aren't that stupid. They're not. Larry in Arlington, Texas. Larry, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing okay. Like I was telling the one that streamed me here, I believe everything the Rush says, the one that says, ready, go. I forget his name, Levine. And everything, and Chris and Amy Daniel Lash. But there's something that irritated me that you said a few days ago, and then you said it again. But then I'll make it really quick because I want to express what I would change also. But you said there's no one out there that knows any slaves or knows anyone that knows anyone that knew slaves. I called her Big Mother. She passed away in the early 70s. I'm 60 years old.
Okay.
And she was a child of her slaves. Her parents were slaves. She lived to be 108, but she lost her birth certificate. She could have been older.
Okay.
Now,
all right. Hang on before we make a federal case out of the exception to... Are you going to listen to me or not?
I am.
Okay.
Let me finish. Okay, I'm going to listen to you, but then let me make another statement.
I'm not going to cut you off. I don't do that. I don't cut people off. I'm talking about the rule, not the exception. You know, there may have been a slave over here or over there that somebody's great-grandparents knew.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in the general sense of trying to airbrush out of history those things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, because if I take down the statues, I'm against that. You're going to erase your history, then you just doomed to repeat it again.
Exactly.
Also with the deal with the Democrats, I wouldn't change what they're doing. What I would add, though, is this. For instance, they're burying themselves. But me, on my birth certificate, it says Negro. I've been a Negro, I've been colored, I've been black, I've been the N-word. I'm not going to say it on here but it doesn't bother me because I still look the same. I'm still what I am. What the Democrats do, they take words and they fire them up to get people irritated and stuff like that. I always speak to people, mostly African Americans, but whites too, and I let them know. They look at me. I was on with Trump before anyone was. I was in China when Trump was in 2016, and CNN was everywhere.
Well, Larry, let me say this. And you and I could talk for a long time. And you're right. When I walk down the streets of Arlington, Texas, if you happen to walk up in front of me, I'm not going to say, oh, look, it's the Negro Larry. I'm not going to say that. If I know you, Larry, I'm going to say, hey, Larry, what's up? What are you doing? Well, you want to get a cup of coffee? Whatever. It's identity politics that has fomented all this hate. I know people by their character. I know people by their personality. I know people that way. This identity politics thing doesn't work. If someone is sitting in a fetal position in their home with the lights out because somebody said whether this or that or the other thing, that's on them. That's how all of this nonsense got started. All of us need to stand up, black, white, short, tall, fat, thin, doesn't matter, and we need to speak for ourselves. Not what we think other people want us to say, not what we think we should say, but how we feel. And that's what the Democrats have taken away. I'll tell you in just a second why I call Democrats the new slave masters of the 21st century. And I'm quite serious. I'm not joking. I'm not teasing. Democrats have become when I say Democrats, I'm not talking about your next door neighbor, your boss, or your coworker. I'm talking about Democrat leadership in the nation's capital. They've become the new slave masters of the 21st century. And in just a second, I will tell you exactly why. And if I were to guess, I would think you would probably agree with me. This is nothing funny. This is nothing to kid around about. This is serious stuff. This hour for Freightliner. Run smart. Helping you run more efficiently is Freightliner's number one goal.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
And this hour for Freightliner. Run smart. Helping you run more efficiently is Freightliner's number one goal. Glad you're along. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-907-3339. Okay, people taking exception with what I said already, and I get that. Yes, I believe the Democrat elected leadership are the new slave masses of the 21st century. Why? Because the number one goal of the dynamic they use to try and get people dependent upon them, thus ensuring themselves their vote, is they take away hope. Now, you don't have to be a world historian or an expert in U.S. history to realize that's how slaves, for the most part, were controlled. The hope was taken away. Once hope is taken away, people fall in line pretty quick, don't they? Because hope is that springs eternal in every human being. Black, white, short, tall, fat, thin, doesn't matter. You have to have hope. And what Democrats do is use the same dynamic as Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, which is you can't do anything without me. There is no hope without me. You'll never get anywhere without the Rainbow Coalition. You'll never get anywhere without the guy that's wearing the hubcap around his neck on a chain. Do you see what I'm saying? When people take away other people's hope, that makes them no better than a slave master. That's exactly what they do. But if you vote for me, I can change all that. It's the same reason blacks, for the most part, have been voting almost exclusively for Democrats for the last half century. Why? Doesn't make sense, does it? Because they're promised everything. We're going to clean up the inner city. We're going to bring businesses to the inner city. We're going to clean up the schools, tear down the crack houses. My brother's keeper under Obama. Tens of millions of dollars are going to flow like milk and honey, and none of it happened. Never has happened. So why do people continue to vote almost exclusively for people that don't do anything except promise the sun and the moon and deliver nothing? Why? Because they had hope taken away. That's what ensured the Democrat Party the black vote for so long. That's changed, by the way, ever so slightly, but it's changing. They didn't run right over and vote for Trump. They just sat this one out. No, sorry, a turkey at Thanksgiving and a toy at Christmas as you drive up in your new Escalade to the projects ain't going to get it done anymore. So that has changed. But yeah, if you're looking, the slave masters are alive and well. Forget about tearing down the Confederate monuments in Dallas and other parts of the country. Start looking at the Democrats. They're the ones that probably still have the shackles in the trunk of their car. All right, let's go to your calls. Let's go to Vaughn in Mobile, Alabama. Vaughn, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Vaughn?
Yeah, doing real good there, Rick. You know, old people. Okay, I get Social Security, and I do, and I get some money from the VA, and I get money from the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and my mom, who, man, she read like a freight train. We get all kinds of newspapers, and I'd get part of them, and she'd get part of them, and we go through it, and we discuss them over coffee in the morning. Now, I graduated in 1960, graduated high school, business college, went in the Air Force, and I do get my largest chunk of Social Security, but if those people back in the 60s, we learned that. We learned it in high school. We learned government. We learned how it worked. We learned Bill of Rights and Constitution. We learned all about that, and none of my teachers, you couldn't even get them to tell you what political party they were in. And my mother said when federal aid to education came around, she said that will destroy education in this country. Now, rest her soul, her prophecy was correct. The teachers, all of a sudden, they didn't run the high school on 2 or 3 students, the principal, the vice principal, and the school nurse. All of a sudden, there were 15 or 20 people in the office chasing federal dollars. And federal dollars means we have to take the federal guidelines for teaching or propagandizing our students. And that is just so wrong. And my mom's prophecy was right. Federal aid to education has destroyed the education. And then the teachers unionizing, boy, that just really cemented it in.
No, I agree. The teachers union, the National Teachers Union, is one of the largest lobbying groups in the entire country. And yeah, as soon as the government got involved in public education, it became immediately more expensive and increasingly less efficient. Because there's no upside for a government wanting to graduate critical thinkers, educated people. They're too hard to control. They're too hard to become subservient. So your mom was exactly right, and it's come to bear. If you look at this, one of the most important things we can do is educate our young people. Because, like it or not, they're going to be driving the bus in a few years. You at least want them to know how to get from A to B, right? They don't know about the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, the Founding Fathers, Thomas Paine. They don't have a clue. Why? Because we're too busy teaching them about climate change. Why? We're too busy teaching them about third world countries that we need to send more money to. We're too busy teaching them about how the Civil War wasn't really fought about economics or anything. It was fought to free the black people. Yes, it was in part, but that wasn't the only reason. We're too damn busy trying to be politically correct and graduate an entire generation that will carry on that political correctness. So, yeah, God rest the soul of your mother. She was right on point. All right, let's go to Robert in Charleston, South Carolina. Robert, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Robert?
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. Yes, I'm doing fine, and it sounds like you're doing well, too.
I am, thank you.
Okay, great. You know something? You're right about that. Americans are not very well trained when it comes to a lot of things, particularly history. That's why we get these people in office, because people walk in the office, the only thing they see before they walk into the voting polls is they see the signs along the street, and they go, oh, yeah, I saw that sign. There were zillions of those signs. That guy must be really popular and must be doing a lot of work, because he has a lot of signs. So I'm going to vote for him. God only knows who he is, but I'm going to vote for him because he must be doing something. Look at all the signs, you know. And then the other thing is, Al Sharpton, he refers to the NSDAP minister for information during the 1930s and 40s, it was Joseph Goebbels. And Joseph Goebbels, actually, his name should be pronounced Goebbels, not Gurgle. Joseph Al Sharpton pronounces his name as Gurgle. In other words, and you think of somebody with something in the back of their mouth kind of gargling a little bit with that name. But I mean, he could do a little better than that, I would think, And the other thing is, Germany operates under democratic socialism, and we are very comfortable with that system because we're a homogeneous society. So I can introduce two people from the opposite ends of Germany, and they can talk to each other like they were brothers and sisters, as if they had known themselves all their lives, because of the homogeneous nature. So communism would work in Germany, I do believe. It's socialism right now, and as a matter of fact, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's not socialism." Well, talk to Angela Merkel. She refers to it as unsere Sozialdemokratie. In other words, our brand of democratic socialism is what she means by that. Americans, because they don't speak German, they don't understand what she's saying. But actually, they're far to the left of what we are. And the other thing is, when you listen to radio stations, I always listen to Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk, which is Central German Broadcasting. You never hear commercials like loan sharks advertising or computer companies, massage therapy, My Pillow or Your Pillow, tax debt, real estate companies, investment companies, tearjerkers for all kinds of charitable institutions, advertising, all those kinds of things. In Germany, you don't hear all that stuff on the radio because they get to the point and they're very accurate about the reporting, and we don't have all these wars going on all the time. So that's
well, there's a certain dynamic at play in the United States. I got no problem with freedom of speech. I mean, for goodness sake, it's what I do. I think there's a limit with vulgarity and some of the other stuff, and I'm with you. Some commercials drive me insane, but we're in a capitalist society. That's where we keep the lights on. At the end of the day, and I do know what you're talking about. My sister was born in Nuremberg. So, I understand. Yeah, it's different, totally different. What people don't understand is that we've graduated a generation or two or three of cupcakes. That if the wrong person is elected president, we've got to go to the colleges and universities and lay out chocolate chip cookies and hot chocolate and call in guidance counselors and assistance dogs and pony rides and crying rooms. I mean, good Lord, please don't tell our enemies how fragile we are. They're not going to show up with an AK-47. They'll just take off their belt and start whipping people. I mean, come on. This is not how this country was founded. Certainly not how it made it through all those very tumultuous generations. At some point, somebody's got to wake up, smell the coffee, and say, you know what? We've gone off the deep end here. We've truly gone off the deep end. We've got to get it back. All right, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Man, this hour for Freightliner. Run smart. Helping you run more efficiently is Freightliners. Well, that's their number one goal. This is Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. And don't forget, this hour is for Freightliner. Run smart, helping you run more efficiently. Well, that's Freightliner's number one goal. Let's get to your calls. Let's go to Jimmy in Mississippi. Jimmy, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
I'm good.
Because I be listening to y'all every night, man. When I'm riding around, I'm retired, but I deliver newspapers at night.
Well, I appreciate your listenership.
And I was listening to you, and up front, I'm a black man. And I was listening to what you were saying earlier about the Democrat Party being what I guess you would call a slave master.
Yes, that's what I said.
I'm a Democrat. I voted twice for Bill Clinton. I voted twice for Obama. But no one tells me I'm no slave to nobody. Period.
Why do you vote? Why do you vote for a Democrat then?
I'm glad you asked me that, man, because to me, they've always had values that I believe in at heart, man. Because see, me, I believe in everybody having a right to feed their family.
Well, wait a second, Jimmy. Do you believe in full-term abortion?
No, I can't stand it.
Do you believe in open borders?
No.
Do you believe in higher taxes?
No. And I don't believe it's two things I definitely don't believe in. That the Republican. Now, I agree with the Republican Party on something. Abortion and gay rights, I can't stand neither one.
Well, you're in the wrong party, Jimmy. Look, here's the thing. I'm not going to argue one way or the other. It's a free country. You can be whatever you want to be. But I mean, abortion is bad enough. You're due tomorrow, but you decide you want an abortion today. They have a full-term delivery, and they set the baby aside while you go down to the hospital cafeteria to get a piece of pie and a cup of coffee to determine what you're going to do with the kid. I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, that's called murder. Open borders. We can't.
I said, I don't believe
those are Democrat values.
I'm strongly against it, and I don't care who gets mad with me about it.
Okay, well, maybe we're not on the same page. Do you believe in socialism? Do you believe that you ought to be able to keep what you earn? Do you believe that charity begins at home and not out of your paycheck based on what somebody else thinks? Do you believe in maintaining a border so that you can assure your wife and kids and neighbors that we don't have drug cartels camped out in the house across the street? Do you believe... Those are Democrat values, period. That's what they stand for. You don't believe in abortion? Well, you sure don't believe in full-term abortion. I mean, good Lord, what's wrong with us? Okay, listen, Jimmy, I appreciate the call. I'll look forward to the next one. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now it's Red Eye Radio with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And thank you so much for being along. I want to get right back to your calls. Man. Jimmy, I wish we had more time to talk. I really do. Because I think you're in the wrong party. All right. Let me go to Eddie in River Oaks, Texas. Eddie, thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm just doing fine. Yeah, I work from 11 to 11. I get to listen to you and whatever. I like my R&R in the afternoon, but my R&R at night is just fine, too.
Well, good. Glad to hear it.
Anyway, okay, we had the 3 years of this Russian collusion stuff that's been going on, which turned into, one-sided impeachment for Trump.
Right.
Well, my prediction this year is when we take back the House, when we keep the Senate, and Trump wins his second term, Democrats are going to come back and say the American people were the ones that interfered with the election.
We've got American interference. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Americans were meddling in their own elections. We can't have that.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. I guarantee it. They're going to come across and say that.
Well, they've got to come up with something because it can't be their fault.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the...
Nothing's their fault.
As I look at this, The only meddling I see in the 2020 election, of course, there was talk about meddling in 2016, and now there's talk about meddling in 2020. The only people meddling are the Democrats putting up this sham impeachment and trying to basically denigrate the sitting president and his administration to potential voters. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. Not at all. That's what I can't understand. You know, everything that they've done, in which you said it and everybody else has said it, is everything that they've done, they're blaming Trump for doing it.
Well, if you listen to Biden, and I've got a tape in my home studio, and Biden talking about...
Listen to him.
No, well, yeah, I mean, he's bragging on tape for doing exactly what they're falsely accusing the president of doing.
That's basically what I was getting to. You know?
Yeah, it's nuts. It makes no sense. Well, it does make sense. If you look at Democrats want you to believe that they are the only way. They are the only way that any of you will get anywhere, get anything done. You have no future. Your children will starve in the streets. If you vote for them, however, you know, let me do this, if I may. I'm sure Gary and Eric could be cool with it. Go to WBAP.com. WBAP.com. That's where I am every afternoon, 2 to 5, afternoon drive. You'll see a thing up there that says shows. Put your cursor over it. There's a drop down. Click on my name. That's a podcast page. Every hour of every show I've ever done at BAP is there. But go all the way to the bottom and look for A Brief History, and I think that's the title, A Brief History of Republicans, Democrats, and Racism. You know, look at it and see who's the party of the KKK, who's the party of keeping racism alive and well. It's like LBJ, when he signed the Civil Rights Act of, 1964, and actually took place in 65. His biographer, not me, said, he was interviewed one time, and he goes, man, after signing this thing, I'll have those N-words voting for Democrats for the next century. He was half right, and nothing ever comes of that vote, ever. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and I'm wondering if people even care. You have to wonder. Good call, very good call, very informed. I appreciate it. Greg in Sioux City, Iowa. Greg, thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Greg?
Oh, fine. Thank you, Rick. Great night. Some really good topics. I got two major points. First, shout out for Jimmy. You're one of us, my friend. You actually are a conservative. You are in the wrong party, and we love you for just open your eyes a little bit more and come on over. Well, we're going to open you, welcome you into our homes. Okay, Rick, this is huge. I have a history degree. I understand history. The Democrats, we need to call them what they are. This is now a treasonous party. There's everything that they stand for goes against our Constitution, goes against American traditions, goes against God. That used to be called our enemy, right? Yep. Anybody who went against those three that's the enemy of America. What? The Soviet Union. They were the enemy. What? Tell me, there's not one single thing that the Democratic Party stands for now that is good for anybody in America. So now the Democrats who in the homes across the country, they just don't understand. They don't see it. But the ones who hold office, especially in Congress, to me, they need to be tried for treason. This is a coup that's been ongoing. A coup, not just an impeachment, a coup to take over the government.
I absolutely agree. It's a coup by any level, by any definition. It's exactly a coup.
Exactly. And so I haven't heard enough terms of the word treason. The Democrats, they downplay everything. They speak softly, and so they don't seem threatening. But every action they take is a threat to everything that we stand for in terms of our Constitution and traditions and God. Therefore, to me, they are the enemy of the people. We need to start calling them that. And we, I know no one wants to hear it. We need to have more investigations and more
Well, I know. I mean, that's all the Democrats have done for 3+ years is investigate one investigation after another.
Right. And when we take over the House again, this coming election, we need a serious look at the treasonous elements of this party and maybe pull all of their security clearances to begin with. And we'll go from there. What do you think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's time for the Republicans to stop standing around, sticking their big toe in the sand. Aw, shucks, can't we all get along? I think the Democrats have proven, no, you can't. You can't get along. And you need to stand up and be counted. You said you're from Sioux City, Iowa, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
How long have you lived there?
I'm a political refugee from California.
Oh, Lord. Well, at least you got out of California. I got out of California. I had a very good friend named Jerry Schimmel. Very first talk radio show I ever did was 85 KOA in Denver. And Jerry did sports, and he was on that plane, Flight 232, that crashed in Sioux City. He did survive.
Right.
Saved a baby, and his best friend was killed in the crash. It's a book, and I'm not pitching a book, but it's called Chosen to Live. And Jerry's just a great, great guy, and I can't tell you how many times, every time I get a call from Iowa, I think about Jerry. So, listen, I appreciate the call very much. Congratulations on getting out of California. There's no redeeming value in that state at all, as far as I can tell. Let's go to Ben in Connecticut. Ben, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, I agree with you that the Democrats are blowing smoke, and I want to look a little bit ahead to when the smoke blows away. And I'm not psyched about anybody across the whole board. I'm looking at maybe voting for Vermin Supreme or Kanye West here. Like, I don't know. But what I want to ask you is, what do you have to say about Trump's promises to the working class? Because, he's saying that the tariffs on China are going to help people, but the soy farmers are, I don't want to say the word, I almost said screwed. And he's saying the steel industry is going to be booming, the coal industry is going to be booming. Maybe the points in the economy are going up, but I don't really see the overall working class getting a boost here from Trump. I don't know if he's living up to that expectation.
I believe what he says because I don't really. I mean, with Trump, everything's beautiful. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. But I take it past there. I go to Kudlow, who is in charge of his economic plan. Moore, which was part of that team that I've known for 20 years. And the way the tariffs have worked, that parry and joust with the tariffs, I think we're going to be fine. I think, Trump says, it's all going to be beautiful. We'll wake up tomorrow, the sun will be shining, and everything will be good. He puts a pretty good picture on everything, but I do think it's going to work. And yes, coal's coming back. It won't if we elect a Democrat. As a matter of fact, they've already said, we're shutting down 86% of coal production if a Democrat is elected to the presidency. That's nuts. I mean, I got nothing against alternative energy, but let's at least come up with something before we shoot ourselves in the foot with what we've got.
Well, I see what you're saying there.
I mean, the steel industry. If you look, 34% of what we lost has already come back, and you would have to guess based on the amount of regulation that has been taken away, and it was abusive to begin with under Obama. Most of that's gone. You have to think that 34% will increase. That means more jobs. Do I think it's going to turn around tomorrow? No. But we didn't screw it up in one day either.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, no, I mean, if you're looking at this, trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to go? People say, well, Rick, I don't care about historic gains on Wall Street. Well, are you in a union? Do you pay union dues? Do you have a 401k? And many other things are dependent on what happens in Wall Street. And we've had historic gains in Wall Street. We've got our steel coming back. We've got coal production humming along. It's not where it once was, but it's getting there. We've fracking. I mean, if a Democrat gets elected, oil and gas is going to take a hit like they've never seen. That's what I did in a prior life, was oil and gas in the Permian Basin, Williston Basin, and different places. And with what we're doing now with fracking, we're not dependent on anybody for oil anymore. As a matter of fact, we're exporting oil and gas. So I got no problem with what's going on. Everybody wants it to happen faster or sooner rather than later. The guy's been in office for less than one term. Look what he's been able to accomplish based on what was happening when he got there. All right. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. I'm still laughing about Jimmy. He's a conservative, just doesn't know it. 866-907-3339. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Hi, it's Rick Roberts, in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Glad you're along. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Let me just shirt tail a little bit off that last call. The choice couldn't be more clear. The U.S. economy added over 265,000 jobs this past November. The unemployment rate fell to, 3.49%? That's the lowest level in 50 years. The number of Americans working rose to about 160 million. That's a record high and the sixth consecutive record. Wages are increasing. Hourly earnings for private sector workplaces are just about 3.1%. That's the highest over the year. Wages are growing at a faster rate for production workers than for managers for the first time in forever. While this Trump economy works for working Americans, the Democrats plan an economy that satisfies that feel-good fantasy of the billionaire class. And, of course, I'm talking about Bloomberg, that has sent tens of millions of dollars to the Sierra Club and the other environmental wackos. Look, I don't want to burn down the forest or ruin the wetlands, but, I do make a priority where human beings belong on the food chain. It's well past time to ask whether getting cheap imported consumer goods should be the goal of foreign trade policy, right? If it's the best way to raise American standard of living. Probably not. I mean, we need to do a segment just on the economy. We'll do that pretty soon, I promise. Let's go to Larry in Detroit. Larry, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Larry?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I agree with about 75 to 80% of what you're saying. I think that the school systems should change, and it should be a STEM-based. All the school systems across the country should be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics-based. That'll help pull people up, and so they can get the higher-paying jobs. That's where we lacking. We lacking the higher-paying jobs. We all know that the Democratic Party has put a wedge through the black community, even since that Kennedy-Nixon election, because it was won in Chicago. Nobody ever stops and say, well, how was it won? Some people say that Kennedy bought the election and this, that, and the other. However, what happened, we agree on the abortion issue. We agree, a lot of us agree that those statues, they shouldn't take them down. That's part of American history. That's part of our history, too. But a lot of people don't want it to be, because when you look at what happened during slavery, yeah, you're right. We don't know slaves. But the stigma and the discrimination, you got to add in, you got to throw Jim Crow in there. You got to throw the heroin epidemic that messed up the black community during the Nixon years. You got to throw that in there. You got to throw the trust. We know that the Democratic Party don't mean us well. We also know that this impeachment of the president was a big mistake on the Democrats' part, a terrible mistake. However, we got to look at what happened with the president in New York with those kids in Central Park. So that's why if you make the education system a STEM-based system across the board, let those kids who are coming up, let them learn how to reason, so that it keep the American economy growing. We don't just want to be, because the narrative is the same wherever you go. You go to a construction site, you don't see no black workers, yet you go a mile down and all of the young black guys are sitting around doing nothing, homeless, that kind of stuff. These are the type of things that we need to look at and correct. But we all agree that the Democratic Party ain't been the best. Okay, but however, you don't want to go over to the Republican Party either, because we know that they don't want us over there.
How do you know that? Okay, I'm going to let you answer. If you want to hang on, I'd love to hold this call for just a second. What tells you the Republican Party doesn't want people of color? Now your national forecast.
The snow flurries have been flying for the northern tier states of portions of eastern North Dakota and South Dakota, but primarily Wisconsin, Minnesota, portions of eastern Iowa, northern Indiana, and Illinois, and into Michigan. Now, that's where the bulk of the snow flurries will be today. Chicago set to pick up anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches, more like 5+ for Minneapolis. Then as we move to the north and east, there's an area of rain. Then out ahead of that frontal boundary, freezing rain for places like upstate New York and into the northeast. Now, that'll continue throughout the day today as those cold temperatures accompany this frontal boundary. More snow for the Pacific Northwest begins as rain today on the coast, and then as it crosses the Rockies, we'll see snow for Idaho and Montana. Most of the rest of the nation under clear skies and unseasonably warm temperatures. Your national forecast from Red Eye Radio, I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
And thank you so much. Here's the talk line, 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 1-866-907-3339. Taking your calls live, doing a live show tonight. There will be a best of show Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And then Gary and Eric return live Wednesday night, so you want to be here for that. If you want to catch me, I will be back in my normal slot doing afternoon drive 2 to 5 at WBAP.com out of Dallas, Texas. So love for you to join me if you get a chance. By the way, if you're looking for station lists where you can hear Red Eye podcast, want to listen live to the full 5-hour show, you can do that on the Red Eye app or the Listen Live button at redeyeradioshow.com. Now, Larry was with me. I want to make sure he's still there. Larry, are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you for your indulgence. I appreciate that. We were talking about the black community, blacks in general, voting almost exclusively for Democrats over the last 50 years or so. And I understand why. I don't necessarily understand in the last 4 or 5 elections, and you made the statement before we had to go to break. Yes, Democrats haven't been the best for our community, but it's better than the Republicans because we know they don't want us. I find that very difficult to understand.
Well, because there is a us versus them mentality. The us versus them is, well, the Democrats, that's the way y'all been going. If you go over to the Republican side, Everything's wrong. Obama's wrong, you know, and you got to understand this. Now, when you go over there, and I voted for McCain. I voted for McCain over Obama the first time, okay?
Right.
And I voted for him because I believe that McCain was just a better would have been a better president. However, the next time I voted for Obama. But you can't go over to the Republican side because because you got to remember before Kennedy, we all voted Republican. It was the party of Lincoln, okay? Over FDR, over Eleanor Roosevelt, we voted for them. But the deal is, at this point, you have a mentality within the Republican Party that says this is ours. We don't want you over here. And it doesn't matter. We got black Republicans. You got this guy who's Dr. Ben Carson. You got a guy here, John James. But we're not going to vote for them because we understand that there's this us versus them. You have to erase or at least level it out. That's why you can't go against. I believe in them. I believe in those Confederate statues in Richmond. I took a wrong turn driving down to Norfolk, and I saw that. I like that. But the thing of it is, that's our history too. But the deal is now.
Let me stop you for a second. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. I'm a conservative through and through. But I don't understand. You keep saying they don't want us. They don't want us. What have they done to show you that they don't want you?
Attitude. The attitude towards us.
Help me out here. I'm not badgering. Please don't misunderstand. I'm trying to be specific. What attitude are you talking about?
Well, when you go to, for instance, if you go to the Republican to their meetings, their basic attitude is standoff. This is ours. Don't come over here. It's the basic attitude. Because remember Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell told Jesse Jackson on CNN. He said, "You're more conservative than I am." Jesse Jackson, you mentioned Dr. Reverend.
I know Jesse Jackson very well. He's been in my studio more times than I can count. Falwell, I can't speak to Falwell. I can look at history, and I can look at what the Democrats have promised the black communities. At the end of the day, when the dust settles, did you get a dime out of that My Brother's Keeper, those tens of millions of dollars that were supposed to flow into the inner city from Obama's administration? No, you did not. We still got crack houses on the corner. You still got 5 kids sharing a book in inner city schools. The only thing the Democrats came up with was $15 an hour minimum wage raise for jobs that don't exist in those neighborhoods and abortion on demand. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you've been voting for Democrats for 50 years. Nothing's changed. I don't know whose attitude you're talking about. Screw them. This is your country. This is your government. Take a hold of it. If you don't like somebody's attitude, say, I don't like your attitude.
Well, we agree with you on that. See, that's what the part I think that a lot of people, we agree with y'all on that. We agree with the abortion on demand. But see, this is the thing. It was the Republican Party who turned their back. Where was the law?
No, it wasn't.
The Democratic Party in the school system.
That's the Democratic lie. It's called the shift, SHIFT. That is the Democratic lie that's been told since the late 50s, going in through the civil rights era of the 60s. The shift was what the Democrats used to get black communities to vote for them. As a matter of fact, do I have time right here? I've got time right now. Let me just give you a very, very brief history, all right? Abraham Lincoln, you know who he was. His vice president was Andrew Johnson. And Andrew Johnson was strongly pro-union, but he was also pro-slavery. He was a pro-slavery Democrat who had been chosen by Lincoln. Why? As a compromise running mate to attract Democrats. After Lincoln was assassinated, Johnson pushed back on every Republican effort in Congress to recognize the civil rights of freed slaves. And Southern Democrats continued to put any of these efforts down as much as they could. The 14th Amendment, giving full citizenship to freed slaves, passed in 1868, I believe it was. 94% Republican support, 0% Democrat support in Congress. The 15th Amendment, giving freed slaves the right to vote, passed in 1870 with 100% Republican support, 0% support in Congress. You don't have to believe me. You can look it up. So regardless of what has happened since then, we ought to at least be grateful to the Republicans for those amendments to the Constitution, right? Fact. The Ku Klux Klan was originally and primarily an arm of the Southern Democratic Party, and the whole mission was to terrorize freed slaves and what they called the in-loving Republicans who sympathized with them. That fact is conveniently taken out of so many popular histories and depiction of the KKK. Now, here's a fact a little closer to home. In the 50s, President Eisenhower, he was a Republican, he integrated the U.S. military, promoted civil rights for minorities. Eisenhower pushed through the Civil Rights Act of 57, and one of Eisenhower's primary political opponents on civil rights was none other, you ready? LBJ, then the Democratic Senate Majority Leader. He had voted straight segregationist until he changed his position and supported the act in 1957. Fact. The historic Civil Rights Act of 1964 was supported by a higher percentage of Republicans than Democrats in both houses. In the House, 80% of the Republicans, 60% of the Democrats voted in favor. In the Senate, over 80% of Republicans and 60% of Democrats voted for it. So here's the thing I want you to get, Larry. Contrary to popular misconception, the parties never switched on racism. Never. The Democrats just switched from overt racism, like the KKK, to a subversive strategy of getting blacks as dependent as they possibly could on the government to secure their votes. At the same time, they began this cynical smear campaign to label anyone who opposed their strategy as greedy racist. What? You don't want to give the black community this? What? You don't want to give the black community that? They were doing it so they could get the black community dependent on them and using people that were against it as a way to keep people dependent on the government. It's in the 60s, the Democrat Party changed its strategy for dealing with African Americans. Thanks to earlier Republican initiatives on civil rights, blatant racial oppression was no longer a viable political option, which is what they used up until then. Remember Bull Connor and Wallace and all those folks? That was blatant racism. Before that time, Southern Democrats had overtly and proudly segregated and terrorized blacks. The National Democratic Party decided instead to be more subtle and get them as dependent on government as possible. As LBJ so eloquently put it in a famous moment, captured by his autobiographer that was recorded for posterity, I'll have those N-words, plural, voting Democrats for the next 200 years. At the same time, the Democrats started a persistent campaign of lies and innuendo, falsely equating any opposition to their welfare state with racism. If you're not for the welfare state, you must be a racist. What? They were using it to keep blacks dependent on them politically, and if you oppose the welfare state, you must be a racist. As a matter of fact, you can go to WBAP.com, go to the homepage, go to shows, go to Rick Roberts, go all the way to the bottom, brief history of Democrats, Republicans, and racism. I'm just telling you the truth, something that you don't get out of the nation's capital anymore. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Hi, this is Rick Roberts, in for Gary and Eric. It's always a pleasure to be in with you when the guys are away. Let's get right back to the phones. Let's go to Russ in Westchester, New York. Russ, thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience. How you doing?
Very well, thanks, Rick. You mentioned why it seems that the Republican Party is anti-black. During the impeachment hearings, it was practically all white men on the Republican side, and a real rainbow on the Democratic side. And in addition, purging voter rolls is meant to suppress minority and youth voting. And I want to ask you, are you afraid of democracy running amok?
I don't understand that question. What do you mean?
Well, what it is if things change in this country, and we get people who have more of a communal point of view, are you going to resist that? This country is going to be more of a democratic country.
Okay.
And I'm wondering
I don't understand what you're asking me. Do I want to live in a commune? A commune? No, I don't.
Well, do you want to live in a country where we all care more about each other and it's less of a cutthroat competition?
I think that's BS. I can't look at you and decide what's in your heart and mind and whether you care more for me than the next guy. That's all warm, touchy-feely stuff. What's the question? I really want to answer your question.
Well, what I'm doing is answering your question about why it seems that the Republican Party is not inviting to blacks, and it's because during the impeachment hearings, which I'm sure you watched, I watched and I saw all white men arguing for Trump as Republicans, and I saw black women, black men, Chinese, Asians, all sorts.
So what you're saying, since you saw women and people of color and Asians, they're more credible than the other side? That's nonsense.
I think your eyes can tell you that the Democratic Party is more inviting to minorities than the Republican Party.
No, that's not true. They're using them just like they used the black community. They use the women, they use the young people. Hell, Nancy Pelosi wanted to lower the presidential election age to 16. Her excuse was, they're much more involved in politics. Bull crap. They're not either. You just know that they're empty-headed and they can be maneuvered and manipulated to do what you want them to do. No, I don't look at people and go, there's a black guy. He's more credible than that Asian guy. There's a woman. She's more credible than that short white guy over there. That doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense whatsoever.
It's a demographic, but as long as you bring up Nancy Pelosi, I'd like to point out, Rick, that the articles of impeachment are going to function as an order of protection for this country, and that Trump won't do the same thing he did right after Mueller.
Wait a minute. Why has Nancy not sent over the articles of impeachment to be tried?
Because as long as she holds on to them, they function as an order of protection.
As long as she Russ, I mean, we're both adults. Let's be civil here. She's hanging on to them because she knows she has no impeachable offense and it'll be dismissed in the Senate. She doesn't want that to happen. As long as she can hold on to them, she can demean this current president going into a 2020 election. A 5-year-old could figure that out.
Right. The voters are going to be the jurors in this case because Mitch McConnell and Republican senators won't do their duty. Okay, look, Rick, one last thing. Do you believe less evidence is better than more evidence? Let me ask you that.
No, I don't. I'm a former attorney, and what you said, I could have argued out of court in about 3 minutes, about twice as long as this phone call. But I appreciate the call. We don't agree on a damn thing, but I'll look forward to the next one. I promise you that. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.